Now before we begin typing in the insurance carrier's name and address, to give you a heads up, we're going to be talking about two different types of insurance carriers. They're either going to be a state carrier, which includes Medicare, Medicaid, Medi-Cal, TRICARE, and also considered a state carrier is Blue Cross and Blue Shield. Your commercial carriers will be like Aetna, Cigna, United Healthcare. So let's go ahead and get started, and we're going to enter in a commercial carrier first, and then as we go we can start talking about the differences between the two. Let's start with Aetna. I'm going to come up here, and in the code I'm going to type in, well, you can type in whatever code you want. I'm going to type in the first couple letters of the insurance carrier's name, Aetna, A-E-T, and then the number 1. And the reason why I put in number 1, if this is the first time I'm entering in Aetna, I'm going to have number 1. If I need to enter in a second Aetna, as you probably already know, the same insurance carrier can have many different P.O. boxes to send claims to, so I may have up to 5 or 6 or 10 Aetnas. So that's why I want to number each Aetna with the code there. And then be sure to hit the tab key. Remember, we're in a field that's next to an ellipsis button. In fact, it's always a good idea when you're exiting your fields to hit the tab key to make sure that the data is accepted by Advanced MD here. So hit the tab, and because it's an ellipsis button, if AET1 was already in the system, it would pull up all the information down below. But because it's not, it's blank, so that means it's not in the system. I can continue typing. Here I'm going to spell out the insurance carrier's name. Now, if I hit the tab key in here and I already have like 5 or 6 Aetnas in there, it's going to pull up one of them and wipe out everything here, my code, and just pull up actually another Aetna. I don't want to do that. So instead of hitting the tab key, I want to click in the address field. But let me show you what happens. I already have Aetna in the system, so let me hit tab. See what happened? It actually pulled up that Aetna that's already in the system. So how in the world can I create duplicate Aetnas with different P.O. boxes? Well, let me click clear again and we'll start over. AET1, tab. Now after I type in the name, I don't want to pull up the same Aetna again, so I'm going to click in the address box. I'm not going to hit the tab key. And that's how you can create the same insurance carrier or duplicates of it with different P.O. boxes without pulling up the same one over and over again, because that could be annoying. So instead of hitting tab, click out in the address box. Type in a P.O. box. Now when you're typing in P.O. box, you don't want to put in dots in between the letters here. Don't add spaces, symbols, anything. With any field, unless the software automatically adds the dashes or dots for us, don't put it in there, because McKesson's going to reject almost every claim that comes in with any symbols. That also goes up above with entering in symbols like the pound sign for maybe a suite number. And as you recall in the other training videos, when you're entering in an apartment, use the United States Postal Service abbreviation codes like APT for apartment, CT for court, STE for suite, and then just the number. That's all you need to do. Don't put any dashes, dots, or symbols or pound signs. Go ahead and delete that. Make up a P.O. box here. Next is the zip code. Once I type it in and hit the tab key, because of the ellipsis button, it'll do a search and it will pull the correct city and state. And you can have a zip code tied to more than one city. For example, 84117, when I hit the tab key, pulls up 3 different cities, Salt Lake, Holiday, and Snowbird. Now, I can add more cities to the zip code, or I can delete them. Let me show you how. You can click Add New since we're here, or click Cancel, and if you didn't get that far, you could always click on the ellipsis button here, and it gives you the same Add New button here, so go ahead and click on that. So let's say I want to add another city to 84117. Just go ahead and type it in here, and you can hit the tab key. In fact, if I wanted to delete one right now, I could go ahead and select, let's say Salt Lake, double click on it, and hit delete. Then I can go ahead and type in 84117 again, hit my tab key, and I don't want to select these, I want to add to it, so I'm going to click Cancel, type in my city, and I'm making one up here, Utah. Now your area code is going to be tied to the zip code as well, meaning that you got some phone numbers behind here that we're going to see in just a second, that when I click in the phone number field, automatically going to pull up the area code 801 for me, so that's one less thing I have to type. And then of course the country. Now if I go ahead and save it, and I'm missing something in a field, and I click OK like the country, then I can go ahead and type in U for USA and hit the tab key. And there it is, double click on the USA. Be sure to save your work. Close out, click Cancel, type in my 84117, hit my tab key. And there it is, Blackbird, Utah. So I can double click on that now to select it. Next, the submitter. How do we want to submit claims to Aetna? Do we want to go through McKesson electronically, or do we just want to drop them to paper here and print them and stuff them and stamp them and mail them off ourselves to the P.O. box you see above, 1234. Now by default, you see the default. Now anytime you see a default in any of the screens, it's referring to your system defaults. If you watch the system defaults training video, we set that up. It took a little while, but we got them set up. That's what it's referring to. For example, is the default going electronically as McKesson Group or McKesson Provider, or as paper? Before we check our system defaults, McKesson Group is all your state carriers. And so if it's Medicare, Medicaid, or Medi-Cal, or even Blue Cross Blue Shield that we're setting up here, the name in the P.O. box, we're going to select McKesson Group. If it's a commercial carrier like we have up here, Aetna, Cigna, United Healthcare, you're going to select McKesson Provider, or as I like to remember it, McKesson Private for commercial. Commercial is a private business there. So that means it's going to go out electronically. What's the default? Is it state or commercial? I don't know. I have to check my system defaults. So if I leave it like that, I don't know what it is unless I go to Utilities, System Defaults, come over here under Categories and click on Claims, go to HCFA, and there's my submitter type, electronic data here, EDI submitter is McKesson Private or Provider. That means it's set up by default to go out for commercial carriers. So if I close out of here and I go back to my minimize screen of carriers, click on it to maximize it, and I leave it as default, then that means that I don't have to change it to McKesson Provider, because by default, the system default says it's McKesson Provider or Private as a commercial carrier. Now I don't know about you, but to me it's like I don't remember what my system defaults are, so I usually like changing them myself and selecting them here. So I'm going to leave it as McKesson Provider here. Now like you saw, you could say I want to drop everything to paper myself instead of going electronically. Sure, go ahead and select paper. But since this is a commercial carrier and I get paid quicker, that's the theory here, when I submit my claims electronically, we're going to go with McKesson Provider here. Now, like the address here, we have the P.O. box for dropping claims to paper and mailing them off to an actual P.O. box. We have what's called the CPID, Carrier Payer ID number, which is the electronic equivalent address for McKesson to find out which carrier this goes to. Now McKesson has always a 4-digit payer ID number. You never ever want to look back on those insurance cards that the patients have and get the CPID number off of that, because it's always going to be wrong. Because McKesson has their own CPID number, and the only way we're going to find out about these CPID numbers is going down in the lower right hand corner here and clicking on the Clearinghouse website link. See, we have to go to McKesson's website and we have to say, look, we want to submit claims electronically through you guys to Aetna. They're going to have an address here, a 4-digit payer ID number. And so when the claim gets to them, McKesson looks at that number and goes, oh, this claim needs to go on electronically to Aetna. So there's our address there for to send them electronically. Now, if you selected paper up here, then just skip this and leave it blank. But no, we want it to go electronically. Now, if you don't see a link in the lower right-hand corner, probably because of one of two things. First of all, you need to watch the training video before this, setting up your submitter types. That's the first thing. If you don't have your submitter types set up and you haven't watched the training video and set them up, then you won't get the link. If you have set it up, then you want to log out of Advanced MD and log back in, and then this will appear. Kind of funny that way. So set up your EDI submitter type, watch the training video, log out, log back in, and then you'll be able to see this. Actually, there's a third step here. When I select paper, it disappears, because we don't need to look at McKesson to get the electronic address. So we'll go back to McKesson Private here, or Provider, and let's go on a field trip here. Let's go on to McKesson's website and find out what that 4-digit payer ID number or that address is for Aetna. Go ahead and click on the link.